Hello and welcome everyone to the 7th week of the semester. This week we're going to be working on facts, opinions, and logical fallacies. As I was saying, we are learning every week a new concept that we will use in this class and in other classes as well. I usually like to refer to my courses not as English courses, but as brain gyms. We used to do a lot more of that face to face because we're working through the different concepts. We're improving our way of thinking. We're sharpening our thinking skills. We're sharpening our reading skills. We're improving our writing skills. And whether you have noticed it or not, you are actually improving. Whether it's through the little reading that you're doing, whether it's through answering the forums, whether it's through participating through in the Wikipedia project, or the other little things that you're doing. Um, I don't know if you have, you've noticed this about yourselves, but if you pay attention, you will notice that you will do a lot of growing. Sorry, a lot of growth will happen to you this semester, and by that I don't mean that you will grow an inch or two. Well, it won't be a bad thing if you do, but I mean intellectual growth. Okay, so uh, I would like you to tag in the chat box. I still have some people coming in, and I'm admitting people as we speak. But I would like us to use the chat box instead of a Google Doc this time in order to answer certain things and to work through certain concepts. And I would really appreciate a more interactive class today. Especially because we are going to be just basically tying in or bringing in everything together to see how this works for us. Let me be a little bit more specific. So this week we're going to be covering facts, opinions, and logical fallacies. How will this be beneficial to us in the project that we're doing, the Wikipedia project? How will distinguishing facts, opinions, and logical fallacies be beneficial and work for us for our Wikipedia project? You can unmute yourself if you don't want to type. We can avoid using opinions in our Wikipedia article. Yeah, that is very correct. Yes. Anybody would like to unmute and speak? So it's not just my voice ringing through the abyss. So
It's important also.
Yeah, go ahead, Roana.
Yeah, it's important also because when we want to get information about the author that we're going to write the article about, we also should know if we're getting facts or opinions from other articles, and it's important to know what information we're putting in the article that we're
That
going
is
to create.
correct. That is correct. Thank you very much for this. And Haya said, so our information is valid and not biased. That is very correct. So if you go back to the learning outcomes of this course, you will see a lot of this is integrated into what we're doing. So instead of just giving you an assignment where you have to write, an article here, a response there, a critical essay here, etc. We've combined everything into a Wikipedia project. And the reason I wanted to do that is because I wanted you to work on something tangible, something that you will be able to see, and not only see, something that we will have there for as long as we all can read it and interact with it, right? For as long as Wikipedia will be there, which is, I think, a very long time. Okay, so as you just said, it's very important for us to make sure that our information is factitious and not opinion based, does not have logical fallacies. And it's very important that we are stating facts, because if we're stating opinions, then it is argument. It is an argument. It's argumentative. We have to defend our opinions. And as you have learned through one of the training sessions that you did with Wikipedia, we cannot include opinions. We cannot include arguments either. It's that I'm saying that they're bad. Some opinions are bad. Some opinions are bad because they are borderline logical fallacies. Let's move to that. What is a logical fallacy? Unmute and speak. What is a logical fallacy? Any volunteers? What is a logical fallacy? No volunteers? Are you kidding? That's sad. Okay. I am going to tell you what is a logical fallacy. What is logic, first of all?
Professor,
Yes.
can I give
It's
my answer?
reason.
Yes, go ahead. Who's speaking? I don't know who's speaking.
Rwana and I think someone else.
Yeah, I know.
Ralph.
Yeah? Rowana, were you?
If she wants to
I
talk,
was saying it's reasoning.
Yes. Jason typed in, it's a way
It's
to
reasoning.
distort the reality to your advantage by using false logic. This is a logical fallacy, that is for sure. So what is logic? Logic is something that makes sense, right? Logic is something that depends on a premise that is correct and a deduction or an induction from this premise, which is also a correct one. So the author we choose, oh, sorry, somebody sent a private message. I will answer this in a second. Okay, so a logical fallacy is a mistake or a fault in logic. It's a faulty logic. It's something that is built on a wrong premise, or that it concludes something that is false. There are so many different types of logical fallacies, and I have included for you a video talks sums up 31 logical fallacies in 8 minutes. We're going to be doing an exercise on that. By the way, I've also included a video on analyzing Trump. This is an optional video. It's fun to see how politicians use logical fallacies to their advantage. Not just Trump, anybody else. In fact, a lot of politicians depend on logical fallacies in order to make their arguments. What are the different kinds of logical fallacies? I'm going to give you one example or two examples of a logical fallacy. One would be the either or, also known as black or white. It's when you give people two options and two options only, and you say, you can either do this or you can do that. Let me give you another example. In the United States, for example, there are multiple political parties. But usually, what are the two major parties that run against each other and nominate presidents? Or presidents are usually come from only two political parties, which are the Democrats and the Republicans. This is in a sense a logical fallacy, because you're either a Democrat or a Republican. You're either you either support an NBA East Coast team or a West Coast team, right? They're always playing separately, and then they play at the end against one another. You either buy from, if you're living in California, for example, you either buy from a supermarket called Albertsons or a supermarket called Safeway. You don't have a lot of options. In fact, you do have a lot of options, but these options are always limited down to two. And the reason is because it's much easier for people to choose between two things rather than multiple things. Let me illustrate how people use this to their advantage. Those of you who know my daughter, don't tell her that I use this example in class. But when she was a little baby, when she was around like 2 or 3 years old, I never told her, what would you like to drink? I hate it when the phones start ringing in the house. Okay, I never told her, what would you like to drink? I because I knew if I ask a 2-year-old, what would you like to drink? What would a 2-year-old tell me? I want to drink Pepsi or soda, right? So I always wanted to limit her choices. I always said uh, would you like to have some milk or would you like to have some juice, right? And in her 2-year-old head, she was choosing. She was the one who was in control of her choices. She was the one who had an opinion and she could make her mind. It gave her a lot of power to choose between two things. But in reality, I was controlling her choices, right? Even though I made her feel that she had a lot of freedom, I was controlling her choices. So I would say, would you like some milk or would you like some juice? And she would like triumphantly tell me, I would like a glass of milk or juice or whatever it is. But like she felt that she was the decision maker in this situation, which is really faulty logic. So this is how sometimes politicians use it. They always tell you it's either or. So every time you hear the either or, no, it's a fallacy because you always have more than two choices. And it's really funny because in Lebanon, we are given a lot of two choices and two choices only. To either do this or that. You're either with this group of people or with that. You either study here or you study there. You either go to a French school or you go to an English school. You either so it's funny because we always have these two choices. And notice this around you, and you will notice that we have plenty of either or fallacies that surround us. Let me give you another example. Another example would be an ad hominem fallacy. Ad hominem fallacy is an interesting fallacy because I see it all the time because I pay attention because I love logical fallacies. Like they're very interesting to study. So I notice a lot of ad hominem around me. What is an ad hominem? An ad hominem is attacking the person instead of his ideas. How does that work? Have you ever heard the sentence "أنت شو بفهمك بهيدا الموضوع"? If you've ever heard somebody say this to another person, this is a logical fallacy. This is an ad hominem. You are attacking the person, you're attacking the persona, you're attacking the image instead of the idea. What if this person has a great idea? I'm sure many of you, especially those of you hear stories from your grandparents, you've probably heard of Ahwat Shane. He was a crazy person, and he came up with the most brilliant idea, which is being able to get water to Beit ad-Din Palace, and this is how it was called Asr al-Shab, or the Palace of the People. Because everyone collaborated to build it, right? And then, but they didn't have any water, so he was the one who came up with the genius idea of having each person dig his grave from Beit ad-Din to Baruch, where there is plenty of water and an abundance of water. What does it mean to dig your grave? Dig your grave meaning your height and a couple of feet deep. You just dig that space, and if you dig that space, you've which is like almost like I know it's a bad thing to say, but يعني بعيد الشر, you dig your grave meaning you dig a trench. And so this is how the people were able to dig a trench from Beit ad-Din to Baruch and get water for Beit ad-Din Palace. And by the way, this trench still exists. So, but the thing is, this interesting thing is that even though he was known to be the village's fool, nobody came and said, "Anta شو بفهمك." They listened to the idea. They didn't attack the person. Unfortunately, this is not the case, especially in our politics. In politics, you always hear people attacking the person rather than the idea. Listen to the idea. Does it make any sense? Is it something that is logical, right? So this is another logical fallacy. We have so many different logical fallacies, and I would like you, after you watch the 31 logical fallacies in 8 minutes, or not or, and if you decide to watch Analyzing Trump, I want you to start paying attention to these logical fallacies around you. Yeah, there's the bandwagon as well. There are so many logical fallacies. Um, so try to pay attention to these logical fallacies because it helps strengthen your thinking and your critical thinking. So when you're listening to people, this doesn't sound that right. It sounds like a logical fallacy. Uh, it's very important to be able to distinguish fact from opinion. And here it's distinguishing fact from opinion and not fact from fiction. An opinion is not a fictitious thing. An opinion can be something that is logical, makes sense, but it's still an opinion. Let me give you an example. What would be a fact? What would we consider to be a fact?
When we have data and like there's no opinion at all, like when we do a survey and then we can say that this many people said that and this many people said that, this is a fact that we have from data.
Yeah, we have when we have data, they're usually facts. However, we have to acknowledge that they work for a particular group, and it might not be a generalizable information for a wider audience, etc., etc. Those are things that we will look at in English so for. Thank you very much. Something that can be verified to be true or false, that is true, that is correct. uh, if I say, for example, um, uh, earth rotates around itself and revolves around the sun, those are two different things. It rotates around itself and revolves around the sun. This is a fact, right? The weather is 30 degrees Celsius today. Yes, very, very true. This is correct. This is true beyond reasonable doubt because we can measure it. However, if we're using a different tool for measurement, it might be in Fahrenheit, so it might be true to the Celsius people, not the Fahrenheit. No, I'm kidding. It is a fact. When we say, for example, Earth is spherical, some people say this is an opinion because some people think that Earth is flat. But we have studied this when we were young. So now we think it's beyond reasonable doubt that Earth is round, not flat. But in reality, have we really seen it with our two eyes? Not every fact has to be seen with. Sometimes we can just rely on the experts. Sometimes we can just rely on the scientists, on the thinkers, to tell us what is true and what is a fact and what is an opinion. Okay? Remember a couple years ago when there was this dispute about the um, Yes, thank you very much, Abdurrahman, empirical or inferential. So remember a couple years ago when there was this thing about the dress, and then you saw the dress to be either blue and black or white and gold. You would show the same picture to somebody. You can see that the dress is black and blue, and then you would show it to somebody and say, "What color is this?" And they would say it's white and gold. How can you see this as white and gold? You would go, it blew everyone's mind away. Why are we seeing two different things? Or the recording of Yanni and um Laurel.
Laura.
Yeah, remember that? So people were hearing different things. So sometimes, even if we see something with our two eyes or hear it with our ears, we have like there is a very, very thin line between a fact and an opinion. Okay. It's fun. It's fun to pay attention, especially when you're listening. For example, reading Lebanese news. I love Lebanese news. They always are so short on information. Like they don't give you information. Like ميم نون ارتكب جريمة بحق لام ميم. Like why don't you say facts as they are? They're always trying to like indirectly. I think it's because of a law that says you cannot do that. But it's very interesting. It's very funny. Okay. So, any contribution, any opinion on the matter? Anyone would like to share anything about this? No.
Doctor,
Yes.
while reviewing the fallacies, there's one that I couldn't understand.
Mm.
It's the decision point fallacy.
Decision point fallacy.
Didn't make sense to me. Yeah.
Okay, let me tell you something. I will review it and I will get back to you with a thorough explanation and I will send that to the WhatsApp group. Okay?
Okay.
And Hussein, if for whatever reason I don't get back to you on the group tonight, just remind me if by any chance it just slips my mind. But I will try not to let it slip my mind. So after class, I will give you a thorough explanation on that. Okay, moving on. Anybody else has a comment or no, nothing? Okay. So
I have a question.
yes. Go ahead, Joanna.
When you talked about the dress being white and blue, don't you think that it is actually a fact? But it depends. Like, isn't it like something wrong with the way the eye works? أو شيء هيك, it's still a fact. It can be white and it can be blue. We can't consider that not being a fact. I
Yes.
think, yeah.
Just because we have two different opinions about something, that in itself removes the factitious part. Uh, um, in the sense that you're right, to you it's a fact because you can see it that way. However, just because we have different opinions about it, this means that this is not something that we can consider to be a fact. What the fact is that people are not agreeing on the color of the dress. This is the only fact that we can infer from this, right? Or that we can conclude from this. So, what I'm trying to say is that sometimes we experience certain things. Remember when I talked about us being walking, talking data sets at the beginning of the semester? We come with our own set of data that we have accumulated all these years uh, from seeing things, from experiencing things, from hearing things. And so sometimes we measure the new information against this data. And here I'm not talking even about our five senses and how we're experiencing certain things, but I'm talking here about um, uh, I'm talking here about um, uh, like certain opinions that we might have that we consider to be a fact. I will give you an example in a second. But when we know the true color, we can say it's a fact, right? Uh, yes, when it is verified and that it passes the test of verification, where a large number of people say that this is a particular fact. To answer this question, Jason, uh, consider, for example, the number of reports on viewings of UFOs, right? Uh, to what extent can you just like say, based on the thousands of you know reports from people observing or seeing these yeah, but to what extent, when can we start saying it's not that it's scientists who are saying that? Let me give you another example related to that. When we talk about smoking leading to lung cancer, or even climate change, it took years and years and tons of studies that were conducted to show, to build this puzzle of yes, climate change is real, and you still have people who doubt it. Global warming, climate change, all that. So it took a ton of scientists working on smaller little pieces to prove this, and it took a number of years. It took longitudinal studies that span over decades, or even 15 years or 20 years, in order to show something is true. Now we take it as a fact. Now we take that smoking leads to lung cancer as a fact. However, it did not start that way. It started with one doctor saying it and other doctors saying, no, this is not true. In fact, if you see advertisements from the 40s for certain cigarettes, I saw this one time for a cigarette called Camel. It says underneath it, recommended by your doctor, as in something that clears your throat. Or if you feel, if you've ever watched the King's Speech, the King of England was recommended smoking in order to help him with his stuttering and his voice and voice projection. Now we're saying that smoking causes throat cancer and tongue cancer and larynx cancer and all sorts of cancers. So sometimes, even when we can verify certain data, it's still an opinion. This is something that we work a lot on in English 204, by the way. I wanted to share a story with you about this, but then I forgot about the color of the dress. Anyway, if I remember, I'll get back to this. All right. So logical fallacies are we encounter them every single day, but we have become, oh, I just remembered this story. Okay. So the story, I can't remember the name of the philosopher, but it's about a little, so one philosopher wrote this piece in the 50s or 60s about a little teapot. He said, if I tell you right now that there is a little teapot somewhere between uh, Mercury and Venus, but it's a little teapot and it's revolving around the sun. It is so small that we cannot detect it with our telescopes. And remember, this was written in the 50s or 60s. You will admit me to an asylum for the mentally ill. You will think that this person is disturbed. But let's say, yes, Russell's teapot. Thank you very much, Jason. But let's say, for example, I raise a group of students or little kids from when they are very, very little. I tell them the story of the little teapot that is revolving around the sun, but we cannot see it with our eyes. We cannot pick it up with any telescope, but it's there. But I teach it to little kids. And then I continuously, every Sunday, I lecture them about this, and I'm always bringing this up. They grow up to believe that it is a fact. So when they are older, when they are adults, if somebody comes and tells them the teapot does not exist, what do you think their reaction will be? They're going to think that the person who's saying that the teapot does not exist is crazy. This is blasphemy, right? So and so what I'm trying to say here is that when we come with a specific set of data, we've been raised to believe that this is a fact. We've been raised to believe that this is how it is. Somebody comes and tells us this is an opinion, we are going to resist. We're going to fight against it. Rwana, you're saying, can we consider something a fact even though sometimes it is not true? Yeah. I don't know if it's true, but not all people who smoke get lung cancer. Yes. Let me tell you another story about the lung cancer. My father used to work for Philip Morris, which is the company that manufactures, or it was the second, it still is the second largest manufacturer of cigarettes around the world. So he used to work with them, and he worked with them for a number of years. And I was very interested in their work just because it had a sort of like a connection to me, direct connection. And I still remember when I was an undergraduate and I was studying, I met this girl who was doing her master's degree at Stanford in health science. And she wanted to do a study on ergili, shisha. And she studied shisha and she discovered that the toxins or the toxicity of shisha is nothing in comparison to cigarettes, right? But that was just one study. She did it for her master's degree. It was part of her thesis. So I became really interested in that, and I started following all the studies that have been published on this. And I have discovered a discrepancy. Discrepancy meaning like there is this difference, like huge difference between the studies that are issued on shisha smoking and nargile smoking, which is the same in the West versus in our part of the world. I also noticed that post September the 11th, sales in cigarette sales tremendously dropped. People resorted to shisha instead, especially in this part of the world. I also found out that Philip Morris was pumping in millions of dollars to specific labs to do study against shisha smoking. I'm not, you have to be careful here. I'm not saying shisha smoking is not bad. I'm not saying shisha smoking is good. I'm not saying that Philip Morris is bad. I'm not saying Philip Morris is good. I'm not saying that the people who are saying that shisha smoking is bad are actually getting money pumped into their labs and their research, and that's why they're doing that, and that there is a bias. You have to be very careful. But these are just independent facts that I have gathered over the years. So in states such as California, which is a non-smoking state, it's not like you can't smoke indoors, or it's a non-smoking state, meaning if you want to smoke, you have to be as far away from people. You can only smoke in designated areas. You have to be as far away from people, as far away from buildings as possible. It's very difficult to obtain cigarettes. It's not very easy to smoke in general. Not very many people smoke. You notice that it's not even part of the culture anymore. Uh, Yet, shisha smoking is for some reason or another allowed. So, what I'm trying to say is that uh, we have to be careful about what facts we pick up along the way. And we have to be careful also to distinguish fact from opinion. It doesn't, I'm not saying you shouldn't hold on to opinions. You should hold on to opinions. But know that they are opinions. And if somebody comes up to you and tells you, you know what, your opinion is invalid because of 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5, you should be able to be open minded enough to change that opinion. And this is critical thinking. And this is mental growth. And this is why I call my classes a brain gym, because we're basically working on our thinking, right? We're not just taking things at face value. Any questions before I move on? Because I just have an announcement to make regarding the Wikipedia project, and then we wrap this up. Okay, so regarding the Wikipedia project, I want you to start drafting. Take your time. You have time to draft, but I want you to collaborate properly on drafting. Some of you, please be careful before you create the article. Please make sure that you have searched for the author before and found that they don't have an article. I have done this before, and I've discovered that, for example, Al Awiyat has an article, but it's very week, right? I also need to put you in touch with him. So you as a group have to reach out to me so that I can connect you with him. That's number one. Number two, we need to peer review for one another so that we can improve our writing, so that we can work on our articles a little bit better. However, I have a third announcement for you. We have a Wikipedia editathon this Thursday taking place through or with Dr. Matthew Vetter uh, at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. And I took permission to have you join this editathon, which will happen 11 a.m. Eastern Time, which is exactly 6 p.m. our time. So even if you join for just half an hour, 1 hour, as long as you want, I think it's very important that you attend this for several reasons. First of all, it's going to be on art and feminism because studies have shown that women are so underrepresented in Wikipedia, not only as editors, but uh, also in the sense that fewer articles were written about women on Wikipedia. Now we're doing our part. We're doing 12 authors, 6 of them are females, 6 of them are males. So it's very good. I noticed that last year when we did this project, we didn't have we didn't have any female authors, which is really bad. So we need to keep it balanced. This is happening, and you can read more about this through the page. So over here, if you click on this, you will be taken to this. So last year's event, 91 editors made 228 edits to 73 articles in Wikipedia. I really don't want you to work on something in the US. Look for something in the Arab world, look for something in this part of the world, and try to see if you can contribute. So part of your peer review would be to make some edits to Wikipedia, which I think is very, very important. Over here, I have 2 links for you. So to register for the event and create a Wikipedia account, please follow the link before, or you can just RSVP for the main editathon event and you follow this link. We already have our Wikipedia account, so we don't need to create Wikipedia accounts. If you have any questions, you can either email Matt Vetter or you can email me and I will email Dr. Vetter. Okay. By the way, I worked with him to create this Wikipedia project for you 2 years ago. He was the one. And by the way, we are the only we were the only university outside of the US to be part of Wikipedia education, and you guys are the only, like the second only class to participate in wiki education. There is another class that's being taught. It's a sociology class being taught at AUB, and they are participating this year in wiki education, but they're working in Arabic. So you guys should be proud. You are very unique. And this is a very interesting, I want you to just attend and see what it is about, what is an editathon, and what's the kind of work that they're doing. Okay, so it says over here there's a very short synopsis as to what the project is. Wikipedia's gender gap, which results in problems of representation attributed to the lack of women and non-male editors participating in the encyclopedia's production, is, and I cannot read anymore because I have windows here. is by now well known and well documented. A groundbreaking survey conducted in 2011 by the Wikimedia Foundation found that less than 10% of Wikipedia editors identify as women. 17% of all biographical articles on Wikipedia focus on women. That's very, very, very low. 17% only. We're contributing 6 articles from the Arab world. That's really amazing. I'm very proud of you. This event is a critical response to Wikipedia's gender gap, which invites the IUP community to help improve coverage of subjects. So when I asked Dr. Vetter whether he will allow you to participate, he was very, very happy. And he said, by all means. So I would urge you to at least take a little part in this as much as you can. Okay, this is not mandatory, but I would be very, very happy to see many of you there if you can make it. Okay, and this will be like you can this is part of the peer review. It doesn't replace the peer review that you need to do for your classmates, but it'll be really great if you can. And by the way, if you are editing an article from our articles, you can do that. So you can combine your peer review with this editathon. Any questions? You're like a very silent group today. My English 204 students are very few in number. I have 25 students, but like if 20 are participating, 20 are always participating and they have their cameras on and they're talking. Yes, I'm so sorry, Carla. You sent me a message and I did check it. I was very, very happy to read it. In fact, I'm sorry that I just announced that you messaged me. But what the person you're talking about the interview in 2013 with Muna Abu Hamzi and Dr. Nazik. If I'm not mistaken, you have to double check this, but if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Nazik is her aunt. So this is why she did the interview with her. But this doesn't mean that she's not a very important figure that we need to write about. But she's outstanding. Okay. Yes, it is very impressive. The other thing is I wanted to talk to the group. I think Jad and I don't know who else is working on Noor Hamada. I also have links for you that I need to give you. Noor Hamada. Okay? Because she is also a very important figure that we need to produce an article about. She is the first feminist in the Arab world. In 1932, she organized the first feminist conference, which took place in Tehran, because Tehran at the time was considered to be one of the most liberated cities in the Middle East. And she invited women from Turkey and from around the Arab world and from Tehran. So, and you can find articles about her in JSTOR, and a lot of articles about Noor Hamada. And I can also give you links to people that you can talk to who can provide you with more information about her. Okay? Awesome. I can also guide you to her birthplace, not birthplace, where she was born in like her home, her family home, and you can take photos, original photos, and post them because they have to be, you have to post them to Wikipedia Commons, but they have to be made available to everyone. Any questions, everyone? Something that I can include in the recording, or can I stop the recording right now?